Hey everybody, I just wanted to make this quick video thanking everybody for getting me to 100 subscribers. I'm sorry I don't have like this big elaborate thing planned. I just wanted to let you guys know how thankful... Damn it. Okay, where's the... Okay, is it... Oh, well, there's the wall. Oh, God. Oh. Now, why would that have... Guess who? Wakey, wakey, Brandon. Yoo-hoo. Wake up! Good morning, Starshine. What the hell are you doing here? You and me have some unfinished business. I thought we've been over this. You and me will never work. It's over. Are you breaking up with me? Just let it go, man. Something you gotta do for me first. And what does that mean? It means you have to review something. No. Nope. Absolutely not. I have made a new short film, I've just finished writing another one, and I have plenty of other projects in the works, okay? That's done. That's behind us now. It might be for you, baby boo, but for me, I can't go anywhere until this is done. So for both of our sakes, you gotta do this. Or it might kill you. Or I will. And so I really have to do this. And there's nothing I can say to change your mind. No. And you promise you'll let me go if I do? Maybe. How long have we been here anyway? About a month. A month? Jesus, what about my subscribers? Do I have any left? Somewhere in the low double digits, maybe? What? You can't do that to me. You're just so much fun to play with. I don't know how you meant that, but I didn't like it. Well, I guess since I have no other choice, it's time to openly talk about and review my first delve into filmmaking. And sure, let's go ahead and kick off a new segment on the show while we're at it. This will be my first T.B.F. review, aka To Be Fair. And this is my 2018 4-part Halloween special. Yeah, I still have no idea who you're talking to when you do this. We're not doing that. No. In my Halloween special, I not only review each Halloween film with the title of just Halloween, but I also interwove an overarching plot that involved a dark and sinister split personality, which all ended in what was essentially my first short film. It was a very rushed and admittedly half-assed idea that I and everyone I brought with me did our best with. But even as I was making it, I wasn't really ever happy with what we were making. But I guess that's enough rambling. We will just get to the review. But don't worry, I will not be reviewing the review portions of the special. I will only be focusing on the story portions of these videos. And I will be referring to myself in the special as Brandon, because while it is me, it is still a characterized version. The special technically doesn't begin with a Halloween review, but with a review of a random movie on Netflix called Delirium. The review was being done outside, which was a common thing at that time because I would sometimes have family come over to my dad's house and I wouldn't be able to shoot down in the basement, which is where I lived, because people were sleeping there. It's obvious that something is odd in this entry though, because it starts off like this. Welcome back, people of everywhere. Sorry if I sound a little whatever. I'm feeling kind of under the weather here lately. First, don't say anything about the hair, because trust me, I know. Secondly, that's obviously a lie, because that is an obnoxiously fake cough. The review goes forward as normal, except for a few moments of hesitation due to his ailment. Elements that they started with, but they just didn't do everything that they could. Character development with certain characters. Sorry, excuse me. And like his love interest. It's so obvious that this is leading to something, because if this was a normal review, all of these parts of me like pausing and hesitating and coughing would have been edited out and reshot. Right after the grade is given for the film, Brandon notices a light in the shed has turned on that was previously off. He stumbles through his closing lines before going to investigate and discovers nothing. While we look at an unforgivably awful shot, a sound draws his attention to a drawer, in which he discovers something he finds deeply disturbing. I'll be totally honest with you and let you know that I had no idea what it was that Brandon found until after I already shot this. I just knew that there needed to be some sort of MacGuffin to kick off the plot. But then after he finds this unknown thing is when we are introduced to... Why not? No. You can't be real. Why not? And then we get this. Best villain laugh right there ever. Give that man an Oscar. That has got to be some of the worst acting in the world. Dick. We move on to the first Halloween entry of the series as we see Brandon deep in thought as he stares at the shed, his train of thought being interrupted by his new guest, who says that Brandon should just go get whatever it is. Brandon tries to ignore him, but finally gives into conversation by saying that he doesn't want it. Oh, thank God, I thought you had a stroke or something. Wait, what do you mean you don't want it? Whoa. Go back a second. Oh, thank... I just looked directly into the camera. Wow. You've got to be kidding me. You suck. Brandon goes on to say that he doesn't need whatever it is in the shed, to which he is told that he will eventually. Brandon then stares down his guest, which prompts this set of lines. What are you looking at? You? Why, you think I'm pretty? This guy's a riot. Okay, either stop interrupting or you're just gonna have to leave. Brandon mocks the Spectre for being an unoriginal and cliche manifestation of his problems, which is rebutted with, so you're gonna start reviewing your psychoses now? This motif of Brandon constantly reviewing things and several references to his videos was this half-baked concept that was supposed to show his inability to differentiate between the real world and fiction, but really it just came off like a bunch of nonsense. Brandon gets a call from his friend James, who reminds him that they were supposed to be recording a review that day. There was actually a part of this interaction that showed that James is playing the new Spider-Man game that had just come out at that time, and it also gets brought up in the finale, and there's never a reason that I wrote it in there. I just kind of did. It was about as pointless as me telling you this right now. After the phone call, Brandon asks his doppelganger, "But hey, wait! I thought you said I wasn't a doppelganger." Oh! Brandon asks if he will ever get an explanation as to why he's here, to which he gets the familiar response of, "Why not?" The "why not" thing was supposed to be this continuing thing that keeps popping up and is eventually the reason for what happens in the finale. But since I just breezed through all of the writing for this special, I paid no attention to plot continuity or really continuity of any kind. Isn't that right? Right. Brandon makes his way to James's house where the Shadow is already there. That's what I'll call him from now on because I'm running out of synonyms, plus it's what he was originally called in the script anyway. He asks the Shadow what has to be done to get rid of him and gets a cryptic response.
"I'll leave when you do what you need to do."
After Brandon shouts his confusion, James comes out and asks if everything is alright. We see that the Shadow is now gone and find out that the movie they're reviewing is the original Halloween. I actually hate the entire review portion for the original Halloween because not only was James clearly uncomfortable in front of the camera, even though he was trying his best, I really spent the whole time trying to think of something to talk about. But that's really hard to do when you're talking about a movie that has been reviewed by everybody and their mother. At the end of the review, James cracks a joke about how Brandon nitpicks everything he watches, and they start to argue. When James makes a sarcastic joke about Brandon being emotional, Brandon lashes out and gets kicked out of his friend's house. As Brandon storms off, James takes it upon himself to call their friend Matt to see if he has noticed anything odd about Brandon lately. Matt says no, but he will try to get in contact with Brandon to find out what's going on. We see Brandon once again looking at the shed. As Brandon asks what the Shadow's intentions are, we close on yet another cryptic line.
"I'm only guiding you where you need to go." And it looks like it's working so far.
Now, before we continue the breakdown, I will honestly have to say that this entry and the next one are my two favorites because for the most part, it is just Brandon and the Shadow for the entirety of the videos. And I don't know, there's just something about that makes it seem like he's entirely alone and all he has is this split personality of his, even though we've already seen that there are friends that care about him. I don't know, there's just something about these two entries in particular that I actually like. We begin this episode with Brandon finally going into the shed, looking as if he is frightened by whatever is hiding in there. The Shadow reappears and congratulates Brandon on finally retrieving the item, to which Brandon denies, saying that he's just moving it from his dad's shed, but the Shadow does not believe him.
Baby steps, Brandon. Baby steps.
No, you know what? You close that door right now because you and I need to have a talk. Once the Shadow closes the door, Brandon finally snaps over the cryptic lines and lack of explanation.
Yeah, you really were kind of a dick that day.
Me? You're the one that... Nope, you know what? Not doing this.
An apology would have been nice is all I'm saying.
The Shadow blames this outburst on the fact that Brandon watched a bad movie, going on to say that everything with Brandon is always about movies. This sparks Brandon to give in and do a review on the Rob Zombie reboot of Halloween. One thing confuses the Shadow, though.
Who are you talking to?
Shut up.
After the review, the Shadow is amused by the tirade that just occurred and repeats his previous question.
Who were you talking to? Excuse me? Who were you talking to? What are you talking about? I was talking to...
As Brandon turns back, we see that the Shadow is gone. During Brandon's confusion, we hear the Shadow's voice asking why Brandon does his reviews. Brandon says it's that people will hear him, to which the Shadow replies,
Nobody can hear you, Brandon. You've always been alone. But I can hear you. You've got me.
We now see that the door is open, since no one was actually there to close it in the first place, and Brandon looks at the mysterious item, dreading what it means. As the next episode fades in, we see Brandon lying on his bed, continuing to contemplate what he should do. Some quick cut editing mixed with a long shot shows Brandon going into the shed with a backpack, which was supposed to be like my version of Edgar Wright style editing, but it wasn't that. And he comes back into his room with the item. The Shadow was there to taunt him some more, but starts to sound earnest about how much Brandon needs to, quote, try it on. One thing you'll notice in this entry and the finale is that there are serious continuity problems with the sleeves of the shirt that I'm wearing. One shot the sleeves are pushed up, and in the next the sleeves are down. It really bothers me whenever I go back and revisit these and I see something like that. So I just wanted to point it out to you guys so that you can suffer with me. You're welcome. In an attempt to get out of the house, Brandon goes to see a movie and is gone until the nighttime. He seems excited but quickly gets sad and explains to the Shadow that he doesn't know what to do after the movie due to what was shown to him in the last episode. In a strange turn of character, the Shadow tells Brandon to do the review for him if it will make him feel better. Notice all the weird long pauses between lines, plus this weird stutter that I do that was supposed to show that Brandon was getting emotional.
For you. Sure, why not? You'd really do that for me?
Get ready for a lot more of that shit in the finale, because it's gonna be bad. Plus, this is the one review that I'm actually going to comment a lot on because I hate everything about it. The only light in the entire video is from the dome light in my car, so you can only even see half of my face. The camera follows my movement for some reason, which is incredibly distracting. And plus, I just don't agree with the overall review anymore. At the time, I gave it an A-, but now I probably give it like a C, maybe C+ or C-. It's just, as time has gone on, I realized that it is, in fact, a pretty average horror movie with only a couple of legitimately memorable parts.
You're going back on a review? What kind of flimsy style of criticism is that?
People change their opinions all the time. It just happens.
Alright. I'll keep that in mind.
I don't like the sound of that at all. After the review, the Shadow asks Brandon if he feels better, which he says he does. Then the Shadow asks this.
If this were the last new release film you ever got to see, would you be happy with that?
Which makes Brandon really confused and gives us this horrible line dub work.
Yeah, I guess so. Why?
That was because I forgot the simplest thing in the world, which was just to say the word why at the end of my line. And I was just too lazy to reshoot that one line. Laziness is a big factor in the catastrophe that was this special. The shadow says that he asked his question because it's time for the next step. This makes Brandon mad again, saying that he has the item from the shed, but he still won't put it on. In response to what the next step is, the shadow gives Brandon a pill bottle and says that he has, quote, been here before. This was actually a really nerve-wracking part to do because, yes, while these videos are fiction, obviously, it is still a fictionalized version of myself. And for almost 5 minutes, I essentially lay out the fact that I have actually dealt with depression and have had used humor as a coping mechanism since a very young age. Everything that the shadow is saying during this whole meltdown sequence is actual stuff that I used to beat myself up over nearly every day, especially during the time of shooting this. I'm not going to go through it beat by beat because I don't want to do that to myself. Plus, I put this out as a sort of confession almost a year ago now, and it's stuff that I'm currently in the process of trying to work past and move on from. There is one part I will make fun of, though. Through a lot of the argument, the shadow is facing as if Brandon's face is over by the steering wheel, even though he moves from that position early on. Just another bit of really bad shot continuity. One thing that does break up the argument, though, is a phone call from Matt. He says he's just calling to check in on Brandon, but that makes Brandon suspicious and paranoid. He asks if James is the one that told Matt to call, but Matt tries to deny it. This makes Brandon even angrier.
Brandon, take it easy. I'm not trying to.
No, fuck you! Fuck you both! You assholes need to mind your own damn business, or I swear to God, the next video that you are involved in will be when the local news shows your picture to find your missing body!
After the argument is all said and done, Brandon has been completely pushed to his breaking point. He gives in and swallows all the pills in the bottle. You didn't have anything to comment that whole time?
Hell no. That got way too real for me. I didn't want any part of that.
Yeah, right. Sorry, guys. Alright, guys. This is it. The big one. The short film finale to my 2018 Halloween special. And before we start, I just have to let you know, I can't do this. Whoa! Where do you think you're going? I just can't do this, okay? It's too awful. I can't put myself through that again. Oh, come on. It wasn't even that. Okay, I can't even lie. It was pretty fucking terrible. But you said you were gonna do this, so you cannot back out now. You're right. It needs to be done. Let's do it. Thank you. Let's do this. It begins with Brandon still in his car, but we see that he is not dead because he wakes up in a coughing fit while a loud ringing is heard. He goes into his house to find his family, but he finds that no one is there. He sees that the basement is an absolute disaster and struggles to think of where everyone is. A few issues right off the bat. First, a few of the names that are said are my real-life sisters and brother-in-law, these being Star, Izzy, and Chris. You would have no idea who they are, though, unless you know me personally. Another name that is said is Kinsey, who has been on the show before. She was in the Christopher Robin review, and she's my other sister. You wouldn't know that, though, unless you are a regular viewer. My point is that you're supposed to have some sort of concern about the whereabouts of these people, but unless you're a personal friend or family or a regular viewer, you have no idea who any of these people are. So just people who are tuning in for the first time and see this would be completely clueless. Secondly, what's the worst way to show that a character is just really confused? Have him swear a whole lot, of course.
The fuck?
What the fuck?
Where the fuck is everybody?
It's so sloppy and poorly done that Brandon seems more irritated and annoyed than confused and scared, which is what I was trying to go for. Anyway, once he comes back upstairs, he sees that the backpack with the mystery item is sitting at the kitchen table. Once he looks inside and sees that it's still there, he runs out to his car and calls his mom. Classic scaredy boy move. He attempts to make quick small talk with his mom before telling her that he was going to be coming out for a visit, all while on the brink of tears. To further push the motif about metaphors and movies, I actually play a sound clip of the main theme from the film Mother, which is what his mom is supposed to be watching. But it's such a short sound clip that it just sounds like gunfire, so the entire point of using the sound clip is lost. And plus, it was just a really bad attempt at being sneaky. We fade to Brandon pulling into his mom's driveway. You can definitely tell that this was all shot on different days. Rainy day, and then it's bright and sunny. I totally forgot to shoot the part in the car, like on the day that I came to my mom's house. So instead, I shot it on the last day when it was bright and sunny. And so I guess I just figured nobody would notice. Plus, if you notice, I was wearing a cross necklace in the last episode, but it's absent in this one. Is this supposed to show that Brandon is losing his faith and his humanity because of everything that is happening to him? No, it's just horrible continuity. Again. I'm not going to point out every time that this happens in this finale, but I just wanted to make it clear to you that it happens, and it happens a lot. We hear the voice of the shadow in Brandon's head again, pointing out that even though Brandon left his house, he still brought the item with him.
You still brought it with you.
What? What? Do you mean this? This cheap piece of shit?
Okay, let me explain. I wanted the reveal to be a subversion of expectations. I wanted to make it quick and dismissive rather than big and overblown so that people could focus on the metaphor surrounding the mask. In all actuality, I didn't even know what the thing was going to be when I started the special. I didn't settle on the Michael Myers mask until right before I shot the second Halloween review. That's 2 full videos before I even knew what the thing was. Plus, it makes no sense why Brandon would have been shocked to see it in the shed like he was, because it's just a Michael Myers mask. And why did he seem shocked about it at first, but now he's just confused as to how it got there, and just, oh, really? This is all just a mess, okay? It was my bad. The shadow tells Brandon that he is still missing the point, saying that Brandon is the one that made a video about metaphors in movies, which is only kinda true, and should be able to figure it out. Brandon leaves in a huff and goes into his mom's house. He is greeted by his mom, and the conversation between them sounds as if Brandon called a long time before he actually got there.
About time you got here, did you get lost?
Nah, just left later than usual.
Oh.
Even though he left right after he got off the phone. The reason that these lines don't add up like they should is because there was actually a big part of the script that had to be scrapped, but we'll get into that more later. Brandon goes to say hello to his brother, Matthew, and
Hey, put it away, I'm coming in.
Oh, don't pretend like you've got anything to hide.
You got.
Yeah, okay.
Was that supposed to be funny? Because it wasn't, like, at all whatsoever. It was quite painful to watch. What is funny though is my brother's hair. He had a sick man bun that he was really proud of at the time. I don't know what was in the air during the fall of 2018, but we were just making horrible hair decisions for some reason. Brandon asks why Matthew is locked up in his room and not socializing with anyone, but then has the same question thrown right back at him. He brushes it off, saying that he's been busy, which Matthew clearly thinks is BS because he knows that all Brandon does is watch movies. And then there's this line.
And what is it that you do? Just watch TV and eat Cheetos all day?
Which was, in my head at least, a reference to this line from Breaking Bad.
Smoking marijuana, eating Cheetos, and masturbating do not constitute plans in my book.
Not a good or clear reference at all, but I tried. We have another continuity error when the light behind Brandon is now on and his mother comes in to tell them that dinner will be ready and that they can all watch a movie. Cut to later that night and it's just Brandon and Matthew, because I suck at planning things out and forgot that my mom was not going to be there that night even though we needed her to be in this scene, as Matthew gets some texts from Brandon's friend, Matt. When Brandon asks what the messages say, we get this stellar line read from Matthew.
Hey, well, what did he say?
Hey, is Brandon okay? Is he doing anything? I don't know what the hell that means, but...
I love my brother to death, but while he was trying, his acting could use some work. Brandon mentions how that's weird, and they decide to watch another movie. Cut to the next day, and Brandon is in his car being woken up by that ringing and a round of coughs once again. Swearing in confusion?
The fuck?
Hell yeah. Gotta love awful writing. Brandon goes inside with an overly long shot of him entering the house. Matthew says that their mom is furious at Brandon for going out, getting drunk, and then driving home. None of which Brandon remembers in the slightest, and is told that he abruptly got up and left while they were watching their movie. And then Mom gets her angry scene.
I mean, what the hell? You to drive all the way into town to find a bar, and then all the way back here.
Look, I'm sorry. I don't even remember leaving the house.
That's not even a good enough excuse. I don't even want to think about what could have happened.
You know, she tried.
You say that like you did any better.
Yeah, you're right. Matthew says that he texted Matt back once Brandon left, and Matt called him shortly after before quickly hanging up, which made Matthew assume that they were together and talked about everything. Brandon agrees that that makes sense. Matthew changes the topic and asks if Brandon has played the new Spider-Man game. Again, I don't know why. And Brandon says he'll play after he goes to the bathroom. Once in there, he goes to wash his hands but has a vision of blood on his hands. And 3, 2, 1... What the fuck? More confused swearing. Once he realizes it wasn't real, he goes back out and Matthew asks if he was alright. Brandon yells at him for asking that and says that he's going to go take a nap. In the bedroom, the shadow reappears, much to the dismay of Brandon. Shadow? What are you looking at? Brandon is over there. There you go, that's better. The reason for this continuity error and the weird dialogue before is because of the scrapped part of the script that I talked about earlier. Originally, there was going to be a part where Brandon gets fully possessed by the shadow and kills his friend Dalton, who is my real-life friend over at Good Shag Productions. As a side note, you should totally go subscribe to them and watch the short film that we made called The Redneck. And so when I wrote everything and originally recorded this part out at my mom's, it was under the impression that later we were going to be shooting this part with Dalton, but plans fell through and we just weren't able to do it. As to why there's the continuity error where the shadow is facing the wrong direction, I don't know. I just suck, I guess. As for what the shadow means in his reference to Matt, Brandon gets the ringing in his ears again and passes out. We fade into a sort of flashback where we see Matt with his adorable cat Pendragon. He hears his phone go off, which we assume to be the text from Matthew that we heard about earlier. Matt responds and goes to prepare his dinner for the night when we get this pretty cool shot in the reflection of the window of what looks to be Brandon picking up the knife that was on the counter. We spent so much time out at Matt's trying to get everything just right, and I love that shot of the reflection in the window. Doing most of it as a one take was my idea, but I could not figure out how to show that Brandon gets that knife, and so I have to give credit to my brother for the shot with the window because he's the one that did all of the camera work for this sequence out at Matt's. So I have to give a huge thank you to Matt and Matthew for their patience with me while we shot this, because we were there for hours and we were stressing ourselves out so much. So really, thank you to the both of them. Matt goes back into the living room and sees that his front door is open. He checks outside to find nothing and rushes inside to call Matthew. They have a short conversation while Shadow just blatantly stands in the window with the knife and smiles, taking away all the suspense that the reflective shot created. After he hears a bang on the door, Matt goes outside and sees who he thinks is Brandon. After asking why he showed up so late, flailing his arms around wildly as if he was giving a performance on stage rather than on camera, Shadow smacks his head into the car. Matt falls down and pleads for Brandon to stop, along with some stock crying sounds I found online. Shadow kicks Matt in the stomach, and we get an obvious and awkward cut right before Shadow kneels over Matt. Because I'm an idiot and forgot to get a shot of the Shadow kneeling over Matt, which was pretty important. But I figured, I'll just splice it in with a jump cut. Nobody will ever notice, but I was wrong. How do you just forget something like that? I don't know, okay? I don't want to talk about it. Shadow pulls out the knife he stole and proceeds to stab the ever-loving hell out of Matt, a total of 10 times before showing Matt coughing up blood. You know, the store-bought fake blood that says right on the bottle not to put it in your mouth. Yeah, he had a big ol' swig of it and just spit it everywhere. The guy was a serious trooper. Shadow tells Matt that he should have stayed out of it before offering one final stab that finishes off one of Brandon's best friends. He drops the knife nonchalantly before getting back into his car. Brandon wakes up and says that the Shadow was lying with this awkwardly written line.
You're lying, I know.
Did he get possessed by the spirit of Yoda for a second? Who talks like that? Brandon gets hit with the ringing again, and we fade into later that night when we see that the Shadow has apparently completely taken over once again. He goes and gets a knife from the kitchen when Matthew shows up out of nowhere to ask what he's doing. As the Shadow takes a few steps, this is now a very slow-paced and awkward chase between the two. One thing I actually got asked by several people was why Matthew is limping from this point on. It's because he falls in the driveway and it's supposed to be as if he twisted his ankle. It's really hard to see though because the only light we had for this was the flash on my phone camera and a street lamp. The only reason we had him fall to twist his ankle to begin with is because of this running shot. We knew that we would not be able to keep up with an athletic teenager going full sprint and that it would look too obvious if he was just jogging. Also, I keep saying we because Matt helped with this sequence just like Matthew helped with Matt's sequence. And both of these guys put up with a lot and had some serious patience with all of this because it was so cold that night. Plus it started to rain, which you can see in the footage. So again, I just have to thank them a lot for putting up with me. Matt's channel is on a hiatus right now because he's an even busier person than I am, but I'll still put the link to his channel in the description because you guys should definitely show him some love. As they run into the forest, Matthew jumps over a log to catch his breath. The shadow has kept up though and surprises Matthew with a real knife coming at his head. Don't try that at home. Matthew finds a new place to hide in a rundown shack, and the shadow tries to coerce him out with false kind words. He then gets a branch to the face for his troubles. I don't know what it is, but there is a few seconds here that I legitimately really think turned out well. So I'm just gonna show it to you in full right now. I think a big part of it is the fact that I got those sound effects lined up just right. The branch hitting Shadow's head and the knife stab. Unlike the sound effects that I tried to do with Matt's stabbing. Plus, I got to swing a real knife at my brother for a second time. Again, don't try that at home. We are untrained professionals. The shadow stabs Matthew 8 times with, again, poorly lined up sound effects. Plus, there's these specific 3 ridiculous sound effects. Those sounded like they came from a cartoon. Yeah, that was bad. The ringing comes back and knocks the shadow to his knees, reverting him back into Brandon. One more confused swear.
What the fuck? What?
Alright, last one, I promise. Brandon mourns his now dead brother before the shadow's voice is heard one last time.
No more.
I don't know, man. I don't know. We then see Brandon walking down the street as police sirens are heard in the background. Brandon gives an evil smile and we fade to black. Wait, are those black jeans? That's what the shadow wore. Brandon was wearing brown pants earlier. Is the combination of that smile and a piece of the shadow's clothing supposed to represent that the shadow is not actually gone and that it still latches onto Brandon's very soul, at least just a little bit? Nope, it's just one more bit of bad continuity to wrap up this special. But now that we're done, I am going to defend this pile of rubbish for a second. It isn't good by any means. It's messy with all of the nonsense about the videos, movies, and masks. It's rushed because I was writing it as I made it and didn't even come up with the idea until October had already started. It's poorly written, shot, edited, paced, and acted, but we actually all did work really hard on it. I wanted nothing more than to make a story within my review show for the month of October, and I did that. I wanted several of my friends to help me make it so that it could seem like a filled out world, and we did that. It was awful, but it was also my first time doing anything like that. It wasn't my last, though. That December, I made a short supernatural drama with my sister called Christmas Past. Plus, I just finished a new script called Number 16, which I am going to make even better than Christmas Past. I've also worked on my acting, editing, pacing, not only with these reviews, but in helping my friends with projects that they're doing and just watching them work. This special was an atrocious mess, but On some degree, I'm still proud of what we did because it was a learning experience and there's never anything wrong with that. Okay. Now will you leave me alone? Hello? Hello? Who lives here? Erica?
Oh, hey, you're finally here.
And where is here?
The house?
Whose house?
Our house?
Huh?
Oh, I brought something for you.
Channing? Tell your woman here that I am a grown-ass man and I do not go into a bright, sparkly blue Tinkerbell backpack.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna go lay him down for a nap, because he's obviously cranky.
I'm not cranky, you done pissed me off.
Alright, well, I'll be down in a minute.
Yeah, okay, I'll be up there in a little bit.
If I must nap, then I demand a good snuggle.
Well, I guess this is where I live now. I'll try to make more videos soon and hopefully get my upload schedule back on track. Yeah, good luck with that. Because your upload schedule was pretty screwed before all of this even happened. Hey, wait, hold on! Well, I guess I'll see you soon.